All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar. It's titled From Geospatial Data to Real World Impact on Google Maps. My name's Emily Reitz. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at the National States Geographic Information Council. And if you're unfamiliar with our organization, NSGIC exists to advance effective national coordination of geospatial information by supporting state-level cooperation. We serve as a national forum for the development of capable and future-oriented geospatial leadership. And if you'd like more information on how to get involved with us, please visit our website, www.nsgic.org. Just a couple of reminders for today. Everyone's been muted upon entrance, and so please stay muted during the presentation unless you're presenting one of the presenters. There will be time at the end of the presentation for Q&A. So if you have questions during the presentation, please put any questions you have into the chat, and we'll address them at the end. And this webinar is being recorded, and it will be made available afterwards. An email will go out to all registrants, and it will be in the NSGIC knowledge base. And so with that, I will hand it off to Sid. Thank you so much for joining, everyone.
All righty. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to folks, depending on where you're calling in from. My name is Sid, and one of the product managers here at Google Maps. I specifically work on Google Maps content partners, and we're here to give you a short presentation today covering our different contribution platforms. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Let me know if you guys, are you able to see the presentation mode?
Yes, slides look great.
Okay, amazing. Perfect. Okay. So once again, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to join us. So I'm Sid, one of the product managers for Google Maps. Joining me today is Luis Navarro from Google Maps Transit Partners, Andrew Stober, one of our strategic partner managers who will be presenting for Waze for Cities program, and Holly is our engagement and outreach lead. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So today, we're going to cover three partner contribution platforms. These are three big flagship programs for cities and authorities to manage their data and share data with us on the map. So that's, as I said, Google Maps Content Partners, or GMCP for short, Waze for Cities, and Google Maps Transit Partners. So let's go ahead and start first with GMCP. So over the last year and on a very regular cadence, we speak with public sector officials. So think mayor, urban transportation, departments, and Department of Transportations. And speaking with them, we learn a lot about the problems they face, the challenges they encounter. And so they face mounting pressures to build vibrant, safe, and prosperous communities. And the challenges that we've seen, we've sort of put them into these three big buckets, these three big themes. And those are complex mobility challenges, accessible civic services, and economic growth. So what do these really mean? Diving into them a little bit more. So complex mobility challenges, basically, we want to be able to ensure efficient and safe navigation and reduce congestion. Accessible civic services. So officials like to ensure that citizens have timely and accurate information about new infrastructure projects, emergency response efforts, and essential services. So when I say infrastructure projects, I'm looking at the image here. I'm referring to basically things like anything from bicycle lanes, bicycle facilities, to parks, to new highways, freeways, and even libraries and public spaces for everyone to enjoy. Economic growth is basically being able to help local businesses succeed and support tourism to your area. So that's where our platforms first come in. And the first one I'd like to start with is GMCP, so Google Maps Content Partners. And our mission is basically to be able to put maps to work for your community and pretty much all of our communities. So here I have a quote that I would like to start with. It's from a US government partner that we work pretty closely with. And they love working with GMCP pretty much because it's so easy to give data to Google and then get feedback from that data and see the improvement over time to the map, basically. And this doesn't just benefit them, but all the residents, their citizens, everyone that lives and travels to that area. And that's the real beauty of our program. So you can basically give us three, pretty much the way we'd like to think of this, apologies. The way we'd like to think of this as you can give us static data, recurring updates, and also direct edits. So by static data, I basically refer to geocode addresses, road geometry and attributes, political boundaries, and points of interest. And you can also give us recurrent updates to static data. Think of it as speed limits, for example. And with regards to direct edits, today we support small scale and high priority edits related to roads, such as road closures. So tying this back to the three big themes. Remember how I said at the top we were thinking about accessible civic services, mobility, and economic growth. By sharing your data with us, you can help ensure efficient navigation, you can help enhance road safety, you can reduce congestion during high traffic events, and you can also make clear to folks that you offer uh, eco-friendly options as well, such as pedestrian paths, bike lanes, transit stops and schedules, and also the real-time statuses to discover and utilize these various options. On the civic services aspect, you can keep the public informed about civic projects from things like infrastructure developments like bridges and city investments. And you can also make sure that essential services such as hospitals and police stations and DMVs are also discoverable. And during a crisis and a time of need, you can also showcase critical information like shelter locations and food banks to keep citizens safe and informed with real time information. On the economic growth piece, you can help improve visibility for local businesses. And if your areas of high tourism or you're looking into growing tourism, you can basically enhance the entire experience for visitors. And you can help local businesses operate more efficiently. So, how does it work to actually submit data? And what do we look for in partners to work with? So our program typically works with authoritative sources. So we think of them as local, regional, and national authorities, housing developers, private businesses and organizations that use Google Maps and our associated APIs, healthcare providers and associated agencies and NGOs, and airports, and of course other trusted public and private nonprofit organizations such as universities, for example. So there are lots of data types that we do look at, but we do prioritize foundational data like addresses, roads and roads related attributes, political boundaries, and points of interest. But we do also accept other data types as well. So think transportation and mobility data, parks and nature, real estate and infrastructure, indoor and specialized mapping formats, and imagery as well. So think drone, overhead, and standard image formats that you could share with us. So we pretty much give you three options to contribute data with us. So the first one, which has two pieces to it, is to share a data set. You can pretty much manually upload files and we would process that and showcase that on the map. Or you could also just share a feed with us or a URL that we could fetch from on a recurring basis. And you get to decide. So looking at this example over here, you can say on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, or an annual or semi-annual basis. And we would fetch your data from your portals and then process it and put it on our map. We also support direct map edits. So if you want to give us small scale and high priority changes, especially right now we only support roads and road closures, you can use our direct map editing tool to share this data with us. And we'll process it and then put it on the map. So this tool lets you directly draw, drag, and make associated changes directly on the map. And the beauty of all this is you have a single unified dashboard from which you can track and you can upload your data, track and update data as well. And you can also track the status of your submissions. And you can also use a communication panel that we have embedded for each data upload to communicate with our folks to understand what's going on if you have follow-up questions as well. We also do share our content requirements externally. So the site that I have here provides preferred schema to ease the processing and avoid any delays due to data transformation. And of course, you always have access to a support team. You can use that email address provided to reach out to them, and they will provide you assistance with onboarding, questions about content requirements, and status updates as well. We do provide multilingual support, and if you have any more questions, the team is always happy to hop on a call and talk to you in real time. And with that, that concludes the GMCP section, and I'd like to turn it over to my partner, Louise. Louise is a PM for Google Maps transit partners, and he'll walk you through the transit experience.
Thank you, Sid. Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. As Sid mentioned, my name is Luis, and I'm a product manager for Google Maps Transit Partners Platform, more specifically. And today I'm going to walk you through a little bit of some of the data that we ingest and why this is helpful for your users. Next slide, please. So the first thing is, as you may all know, at Google Maps, we currently work with multiple agencies around the world to ingest the transit data. So some of you may be wondering, why should I partner with Google Maps? I already have perhaps my own transit map. And the reason is that this is very helpful for your users. Like many of your users are already using Google Maps, for example, to find restaurants or to find businesses. And when they do so, they want to know how to get there, right? And if you're already in Google Maps, you might as well continue using Google Maps to kind of help you get to your destination. So there are different data types that we ingest within Google Maps that are related to transit. So first, we have the static schedules. So this includes things like at what time, for example, a bus is arriving to a specific stop, or the different stops that you have. We also ingest real-time data, and this includes information such as service alerts, which means if there's a disruption because of weather or because of a protest or whatnot, you can send us information about that. Or, for example, information around where the vehicle is located. That's the image that we have right here, kind of showing like where the bus is so that, you can have an idea of when it's arriving, as well as like estimated arrival times. And, we also ingest information for accessibility, things like, hey, does this train station have an elevator? Does it have ramps to help people in need? Next slide, please. So there are multiple key benefits of partnering with Google Maps for transit. So one, like your users will have access to real-time updates. So again, they can see information such as, hey, when is my bus arriving? How long is the duration of the trip? Is a particular station open or closed? We also support mode shift. And this is like an option that's available if you provide us with real-time information. So, for example, if we have access to real-time data, we can present to your users different options on how to get to the destination. And this is a way to help provide like more eco-friendly options. Many times you can get to the destination faster and in a more eco-friendly way by taking public transit, for example, than if you drive. So we provide those options. And then accessible planning. As many of your cities receive many tourists throughout the year. So in Google Maps, we support multiple languages, so we can basically show information about transit in their own native language, so that it's an easier experience for your users. Next slide, please. So how does it work? And what does the partner platform page look like? So in here, we have a screenshot of, for example, the static data ingestion. So at a high level, if you access the transit platforms, like partner platform page, you'll be able to see feed information such as, what is the status of my feed that I sent to Google? Are there any problems? If there are any problems, why we have those issues? And then, there's a myriad of tools that can really help you understand your GTFS data in a much better way, with, again, visuals and maps and tables, information that, again, you will need to understand the status of your feed within Google Maps. Next slide, please. We also provide access to service alerts. I touched on this earlier, but basically, as we all know, there are always, issues, because maybe a station, there was a weather problem, or a station needed to be closed for, construction or whatnot. So within this platform, you can provide information, real-time information about, if there's a particular service alert, you can either send us a real-time feed, GTFS feed, or you can come into the site and you can create an alert manually. Next slide, please. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Andrew, who's going to talk about Waze for Cities. Thank you.
Hi, thanks so much, Luis. Hi, everybody. Great to be with you today and great to have the opportunity to talk to you about Our third partner contribution platform, Ways for Cities, which is really a two-part pathway for you. It's a pathway to make sure that Waze, the navigation app that I'm sure you're all familiar with and many love, is up to date. And also it's a pathway to provide real-time information to Google Maps. Next slide, please. The Ways for Cities partnership program allows you to share data and get data back from Waze. But most importantly, it allows you to share that real-time information to make sure that drivers have the most up-to-date information about various kinds of alerts. So these could be highlighting construction zones, obviously important to worker safety, helping people understand why the traffic ahead of them might be slow, sharing with us alerts and closures, making sure that your city keeps moving during major events when streets are closed or during planned construction or emergent events. You can upload those closures and share them with us all in real time. And we have a couple of different mechanisms for that. You can share that with us through a live feed, which will update both Google Maps and update both Waze and Google Maps. Or you can share that with us through our Waze map editor and a point and click solution and share those road closures with us and have those appear on Google Maps and Waze. And we also offer support during crisis events to share all kinds of crisis alert information. Next slide, please. So we have a free platform here. And in fact, something that's missing from this old screenshot is a new feature that we have, which allows you to see what the impact of the information that you share with us is. So we'll share with you information on how many alerts that we've shared, and also share with you how many drivers on Waze those alerts have reached. So within this platform here, you're able to both get data from us, information from Waze users about what they're seeing on the road, and share data with us through the partner feed and the Waze map editor. Next slide, please. When it comes to the partner feeds, this is our preferred way to receive information. We accept this information in a variety of formats, including a format that Waze created over 10 years ago called the KIFS format. But also, for those of you in the US, we can accept WZDX, so Work Zone Data Exchange formats here. And when you share that feed through the Waze Partner Hub, you also get feedback on the performance of that feed. So when you click through to it, you can see the events you've shared, how many errors that we have. So those are events that are not showing, and we'll show you a reason why. And also how that alert is performing, or information you shared with us in terms of that it's up on the map. And you can view it in a variety of ways. So you get this feedback from us in real time. This is often a question that I get when I'm asked, like, well, you can just go and pull our open data about road events or road closures. And it's true, we can do that, and we will do that. The real advantage of going through the Ways for Cities program is you get all of this feedback on the quality of the data that you're sharing with us, and whether it is being accepted and being correctly processed in our systems. It also, when problems arise, it helps us chase down that issue. Is there an issue with the data on your end? Is there an issue on our processing end? And we can now figure that out pretty quickly together. Next slide, please. The Waze map editor, as I mentioned before, is a point and click solution to share road closure information with us. You can put in road closures just by clicking a segment, following a very simple user flow. And then when you hit save, that road closure will appear on Waze within 2 minutes, and on Google Maps within 5 minutes. For those of you who may have tried this before, we've greatly improved the latency on this, so you get your updates onto both maps very quickly now. And just as importantly, you can remove them as well. So even some partners who share feeds with us will also use the Waze map editor for emergency situations to quickly be able to go in and add or remove closures. You can also add other kinds of roadway information here. That will not instantly update. That requires review and approval by our Waze map editor community, but the closures are something that you entirely control. Next slide, please. Yeah. You can also add real-time incidents. So you can add an alert. So any alert that you can add from Waze on your phone, this could be information about crashes, lane closures, flooding, fog, animals on the side of the road. Anything that you can add as a Waze user, you can add as a Waze partner to the map, and it'll appear instantly on the map. So you click that segment. Again, you follow a user flow to add which kind of alert you want to add, and it'll instantly appear on Waze. And for those alerts that do flow through to Google Maps, which are not all of them, Google Maps has a slightly different alerting experience. Those will show up there as well. Next slide, please. So this is just a kind of a quick summary of our roadway contribution platforms here, and transit obviously at the bottom. So when you want to share with us road alerts, things like closures, crashes, construction, weather events, other kinds of information, the best place to submit that is to the Waze for Cities program, and then that will then flow through to Waze and Google Maps for that foundational program. For that foundational information, things like roadway geometry, the names and attributes of roads and places, addresses, political boundaries, other points of interest. Google Maps Content Partners is the place to share all of that information with us. It'll flow through to Google Maps, and much of it will be available on Waze as well. More and more of it with each year that goes by. When it comes to things like infrastructure and mobility features that may not be featured on Waze, parks, EV charging stations, low emission zones, bike lanes, pedestrian plazas and pathways, bike share systems, all of that you can all share with us through the Google Maps Content Partners program. And that, of course, appears on Google Maps. And as Luis talked about, our transit program is actually probably our largest contribution program. One of my favorite stats, I think we have over 10,000 partners in the program and 4 million bus stops and train stations all around the world on Google Maps that all come to us through our Transit Partners program. So when it comes to really fueling the experience that over 2 billion people have all over the world each month, when it comes to Google Maps, you can play an important role in making sure that the information that they see is accurate and up to date. Next slide. And now we'll, I think, turn it back over to you all for your questions.
Awesome. Yeah, so we've had quite a lot of activity in the chat here. I've been keeping track of questions and can read them in the order that they were received, if that's helpful.
That works.
Sure.
Okay, so starting off, someone had a question. Loopsdorf. Does sharing data work the other way as well? That is, are there ways for government agencies and employees to bulk export data from Google Maps?
I can help take this one. At this
Yeah.
point, we most likely will not support that. But if you do have some questions or something very specific you're looking for, you can shoot our support team an email, just so that we can better understand the use case and why you would like to have something like that, and then we can talk to you about it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like the next person had kind of seconded that and said that they'd like to use Google Streets, addresses, POI to help update their 911 dispatch software. So for a little bit of of context there. And Laura Dodd said, with the US government, are we able to download your full road geometry and use that to create public-facing data sets with our attributes?
Yeah, so maybe, and Holly should also feel free to chime in here if she's on. Through our Google Maps platform, we have a couple of different options to access some of this data. We may not be able to provide it to you in the way that you're looking for, but we have a number of APIs that allow you to access things like addresses, places. We are working on surfacing more of our road network to be available as well. And we're always interested in understanding these use cases. So please, if you have very specific ones, as Sid said, make sure you share them with us. We might be able to find solutions with some of our existing offerings. I definitely encourage you to look at Google Maps platform as a place that might have some of this information for you.
Awesome. And Mark asks, when we share this data, is there any TOS, terms of service, probably for how Google can use this data? Is it being used for LLM training, or is it being used for any downstream data products?
So there is a terms of service that you'd have to sign, and then we do utilize your data internally. We may be doing some other R&D work with it, but with more regards to any other downstream work, I can't explicitly comment on that here.
Yeah. And what I will say, just to provide a little more color on that might be helpful for some of the folks on this call, is some key elements of that terms of service is it does provide us perpetual rights to the data that are revocable, and so we can't remove some of the data. It's very hard for us to take data kind of off the map. We can update it, but we can't always remove it. And it does allow us to use it across all Google products and platforms, but you can certainly consult that for more detailed information. I think what we found, though, globally, with now thousands and thousands of partners across all of these programs, is that the benefits of having this information accurately represented on Google Maps with so many users far outweighs any of the risks that come along with the terms of service. And we've worked pretty hard to make them public sector friendly in terms of the most common objections that we've encountered.
All right, thank you. Rachel asks, for transit users, or maybe just states, for transit users, it would be helpful to have a setting for a user profile for accessibility or max walking distance, stuff like that. And for bike users, have the ability to use multimodal, like take a bike ride to the bus, then walk, then take a train. So not really question there, just comment.
That's a great question or question, Rachel. We actually do have an ability to specify like accessibility in your profile in Google Maps. So you can specify if you are on a wheelchair, and then we'll provide different access points for that. In terms of bike users, there's also an ability to specify in a specific trip whether you have a preference for a specific say like transportation mode, like tram or subway, and you can also specify if you are riding a bike, and with that we can provide options. It's not there's opportunity to do more, but we have some like abilities to specify certain settings there.
And it's definitely something that our navigation teams are looking at. We recognize there's like great value in terms of multimodal trips. We already see that in terms of walking to transit, but certainly adding things like biking to transit and bike and walk as well.
Awesome. All right. And Clint wants to know, are the direct edits to the map in your Google Partner account treated as authoritative? But if you use your Gmail account, it's not considered authoritative?
So for this one, I'd say we really encourage you to sign up with your organization's email as much as possible, because when we do our verification checks to decide if you're authoritative or not, sometimes when we see a Gmail account on there, it does send a signal to us that, okay, it's this person who they say they are.
And this is an important benefit of the Google Maps Content Partners program, rather than just using the feedback button on Google Maps, right? This is something we've worked very hard on with actually product teams that even preceded Sid and Luis joining to build that, to evolve the trust model at Google Maps, to say if it's coming from an authoritative source, if you work for a government agency, we're going to trust that the information you're providing us is accurate until you give us a reason not to trust it, rather than asking you to. I'm sure many people on this call have some kind of Kafka-esque stories of dealing with Google about asking us to, close roads that haven't been opened yet, and you can't provide a press release that says it's closed because it's never been opened. Those kinds of scenarios. This is really something that's vastly improved with Google Maps content partners in the past couple of years, and that the information that you send us through there is viewed as authoritative and is trusted. We may come back to you with questions if we have questions about how to apply that data accurately, or if we think something isn't quite right. That's another great thing about this platform, is that all of those conversations happen within the platform, so you can keep track of them as well.
Perfect. All right, Joseph asks, what kind of validation or QC is done on the GTFS feeds before publishing? And what are some feed issues that would prevent an agency from having their feeds published on Google Maps?
Yep, great question. So we have two different types of validation processes depending on the type of feed we're talking about. So we have static and real time. They go through two different processes. So for static, some of the validations that we do, for example, is the bus stop located in the correct place? Is the color of, for example, the subway the right one? Do we have information around accessibility? So we look at different things there on the static side to make sure that ultimately the information that we are getting is accurate and is also helpful for our users. On the real-time side, we go through similar, but also we look at different things, of course, because of the nature of the data. The process for real-time basically includes some of the validations that we do are is the frequency of the real-time updates happening at a reasonable cadence. Is it happening in less than 2 minutes, right? Ideally every 30 seconds. If we're getting updates every 5 minutes, then we get back to the agency and say, hey, is it possible to get updates more frequently? We also look at, for example, the is a train or a bus traveling too fast given the static information that we have? So we try to map the real-time information with the static information and see if the data makes sense. So we look at different aspects there of the data to make sure, again, that ultimately it is accurate and is helpful to our users. Happy to provide more details about those, but that's at a high level some of the things that we do.
Awesome. All right, Pete asks, and it looks like a lot of other people are curious about this as well. I've sent many updates to Google Maps previously, and some are accepted and are quickly visible, and others never make it. So what are the criteria for acceptance?
One question to clarify here, Pete. So was this specifically through GMCP, or was this through our edit the map experience or contribute experience on the external on the Maps app on your phone?
I hope it's okay to speak.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, yes, please.
Right. Yeah. So using the regular editor, map editor in Google. So just as a member of the general public.
Okay. So that goes through a different processing route entirely. So GMCP was meant for authorities primarily. So when you submit that as a member of the general public, we do check to see that you are, again, like others are also reporting the same thing. It goes through multiple checks for spam as well. So there's a chance that somebody else may have submitted that ahead of you, and that could propagate first. And so they may have rejected yours and sort of accepted the other one. This is why we encourage you to use, if you're an authoritative user, this is why we encourage you to come through GMCP first, because GMCP prioritizes authorities.
So that answers part of it, but where I work for the state of Massachusetts for MassGIS, we're getting these kinds of questions all the time. And typically for many edits, we can just say, oh, go to the Google Map editor and go ahead and edit that, and it goes through and it's fine. But for those other users, so that all these other edits aren't coming to us, that we have to edit it through this other process, what can I tell them about ways that they can potentially enhance their edit to make it more likely to be accepted?
So I just ask one quick question for you, Pete, here. Are those other folks, are those the general public, or are those your colleagues in state agencies?
for the most, it's either folks from town at the municipal level
Uh-huh.
or the general public.
Okay, so I would just say for folks who are working for other public sector entities, who are working for towns or authorities or others who you may be dealing with, or even other colleagues in state government.
Mhm.
For your colleagues in state government, if you wanted to, they could join the GMCP account that you've set up, or they could set up their own agency-specific accounts. And also encourage anyone in municipal government to set up their own GMPC account. That will give them this like preferred pathway as an authoritative provider. And maybe Sid can speak to some tips for the general public.
Yeah, I'll say one thing about the authoritative provider piece. So we typically try to process those submissions much quicker than the general public submissions. But if multiple people report the same thing from the general public, it's more likely that we're going to recognize that as something that's genuinely wrong with the map. Whereas if it's a single person reporting it, it'll probably take more time because we have to check against more signals to see if it's genuinely a truthful change or not. So,
Thank you.
of course.
Thank you. All right. And Jonathan says that he's had very good experiences contributing corrections directly via Google Maps Content Partner Program. When can we anticipate other data types being activated, like addresses, POIs, capital O, other?
Jonathan, I'm guessing when you say directly via GMCP, you are referring to the edit the map directly tool where you are selecting and sort of changing roads, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you so much. I'm glad you love it. We love it too, and we're happy to hear that people love it as well. So we are evaluating our roadmap, and we're looking at what to do next in terms of other data types as well. So be it addresses, POIs as well. So this is top of mind for us, but nothing I can commit to right now for you. So thank you.
Sorry, there we go. I was muted. All right. Doug asks, reverse physical address geocoding to GIS coordinates for emergency dispatch to responders, fire, police, EMS. Unsure. Doug, if you want to clarify, feel free. Otherwise, any comments on that? All right, we can move to the next question.
Yeah, sorry, I think I need a bit more context on that one.
Yeah,
Understand
yeah,
it.
Doug, if you have more context, feel free to comment on that original question. John asks, will these map additions have a mechanism to be removed if they are no longer in effect? Can end users remove them if the contributor/adder does not follow up on their addition? Was this already addressed?
So you could share updates to your data to us. So either via, I think the 2-3 mechanisms I'd shared before, where you can update your feed or your next data set upload. You could pretty much not have that on there anymore, and then we would see that as, okay, this needs to be changed in the next time we process the data. If it's a roads related change, like a one-off road removal, we highly encourage you to go to the direct map editing tool and just directly signal there about, okay, this road has been demolished or this road is now formally closed in perpetuity.
Sounds good. All right. This seems focused solely on volunteer data being contributed to Google. Is that correct? Which again, Doug, not sure what this was referring to, but if that question made sense, feel free to answer it. All right. Rob asks, is it possible to share authoritative content through the Google Maps Content Partners portal without having a Google account associated with a Gmail address? Rob works for a county, but currently has to use their personal Gmail account to participate in the program since the county doesn't have an organizational Google account.
Sorry, I'm just rereading the question one more time.
Yeah, all good.
Okay, so if I understand the question correctly, you're asking if you can use your personal Gmail account since you don't have an organizational Google account, if I understood that piece correctly. So we typically want you to use some sort of an organizational account. It doesn't have to be an organizational um, Gmail account or of some sort, but if you do have anything at a .gov, we highly encourage you to use that. If you can't do that, then you can use your personal Gmail, but provide as much clarification information that you can that you are an authoritative source. Because when we go and we do our background checks, we don't want to accidentally mark you as non-authoritative.
Hey, I'm the one that asked that question. And so I'm looking back at an email I got from Map Content Partner Support about a year ago when I was setting all this up. So all the email communication goes to my .gov email address, but I needed to have a Google account and a Gmail address in order to go through the verification process to set up the account. And they wrote back, unfortunately, a Google account is required for a verification process. In order to create a Google Maps Content Partners account, you need to be logged into a Google account and have a Gmail address. So that's where that's coming from. My colleague couldn't sign up for another GMCP account because she doesn't have a Gmail address. Does that make sense? I mean, maybe I got bad info from support. It was somebody named Gene at support.
I'm sorry to hear this had happened. So in this case, they told you that you needed a personal Gmail account to then use your
Yeah, so
then
when I
use
was trying to set up the account, I think I maybe had to open a ticket because I have a long email chain here where I was just trying to set up our account so we could contribute, and I was trying to do it without having to use my personal Gmail account, and I never could complete the account setup until I used my personal Gmail address to go through the verification process for the account. And that was, like I said, it was over a year ago. It was summer of 24.
Could you, forgive me for asking you, but is it possible for you to try once again, or have you not tried since then?
I mean, I just finished setting up the account. I've been just using it ever since then. Like I said, I have a login now. I contribute content on some pretty regular basis. Every time we get a new subdivision, I submit rows and addresses, and I get emails to my .gov account. It's just like I said, in order to set up the account, I needed it. They said I needed to have a Gmail account for the verification part. And so I haven't gone back and revisited that since it's set up now, and I am contributing. But like I said, I would like to get my colleague in that as well. I guess I wonder if there's a way to add her to the account without her having to have a Gmail account. And yeah, I'm not really sure how that works because I haven't looked at that stuff in a while. But
If you are the admin on the account, you can, I think it's on the top right panel, you should be able to click and add team members option, and then you can then add an account to that, and then you can give them admin or edit or view only permissions, and then it should send them an email from there, and then they can use that to log into this account.
Oh yeah, look, I see that now. Invite others to DeSoto County.
Yeah. It was a recent fix we rolled out to accounts.
Okay, that helped. That'll help, and then hopefully, if I ever leave here, it won't still be tied to my personal Gmail account somehow. But we'll deal with that later. Okay, well, at least that helps.
Awesome. Glad to help.
Thank you.
Nice. All right. So Pete has another question. Pete works for the state of Massachusetts and MassGIS, and they often get questions about problems with package delivery or in-vehicle navigation. Do you know who Google's working with in regards to these services, like UPS, Amazon, Here, TomTom?
Andrew, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, so it's a little hard to know without the specific issue, right? Because lots of different things can cause that, can cause those problems. So, with package aware navigation, sometimes that can be an address issue. So an address not being accurate on the map, or it can be a roadway attribute issue. So either a turn being prohibited on the map that is actually allowed, or vice versa, or a closure issue. So it's a little hard to get to the bottom of it without knowing the specific issues.
Yeah.
But I would say most often it's to do with addresses.
Sorry. My question was more about if there are formal partnerships that Google has in place with these groups. Does Google have, do they have a contract with TomTom where they're sharing data, or
No.
others?
Yeah, so no, so the data on Google Maps, so others may use Google Maps for last mile delivery. So on some of the kind of delivery service side of the house, Google Maps may be powering some of those experiences for various providers. But here and TomTom, some others like that who are also produce their own maps, no, we don't formally collaborate with them, though. Like, for instance, on the state DOT side, MassDOT, right, when they send out updates, they send them out to all of us on those to make sure that we all have those updates, all of those services.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. Jonathan asks, is there a straightforward way to determine if the account I'm using through Google Maps Content Partners is considered to be an authoritative contributor? Or is that kind of the whole point of Google Maps Content Partners?
Yes.
Is once you're accepted, then you're authoritative.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
Gotcha. Autumn is with the University of Arizona, and they have their campus mapped in great detail. Would,
Yes.
and Autumn, feel free to jump in to clarify.
Mhm.
I think we're
Yep.
missing a word in the question,
No,
but
sorry, I'm
That's
here.
okay.
I was just wondering, like, would we be considered an authority for our area? Okay, cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Universities are we consider universities as authoritative sources.
Awesome, thank you so much.
all right, and I think. All right, some questions were answered in chat by Holly, so thank you so much for that. Ashley sees through the Content Partner program that you promote. There's like a support link there about creating new addresses with Address Maker. Is there an opportunity to collaborate through this program on an address validation project if we share our address data with you?
Could we get a bit more context on this? So if you do share address data with us, we would evaluate the data, and if it's coming from an authoritative source,
Yes.
we would be more than happy to ingest it. But we
Yeah,
just want a bit more data.
Yeah, I'm from the GIS office. Hi, everyone. Ashley Benitez, GIS office, Connecticut. I'm a GIS coordinator there, and we've been working sort of in a address validation project. This is part of the major, larger standard operating procedure that we want to implement with our address data, but we're collecting data. Our first steps are collecting data from different data sources you probably don't have access to, but also some other public data sets that we use as source of truth, like parcel and CAMA data and our E911 address data that are also available online and publicly. But we also collect from state agencies, utilities, and other partners that we've requested their data sets to sort of conflate them all together and create sort of a master address data set where we validate the existence of that address through the presence of them through all these data sets, especially the utilities and all that, right? And including internet service providers and whatnot. So I was thinking that maybe because you mentioned something here about assistant on address making. I imagine this is more for local partners like towns and all that, but I was thinking that you do probably have in place a way to sort of identify, address within a center line and what address should be part of whatever your system of addresses. And that's why you offer the support. So I was thinking like if there's an opportunity to do this at a larger scale, to identify, so sort of like having this addresses even validated by Google and say like, oh, we look at your data set and it matches more or less what we have with certain metrics, whatever. So, but if this is not the channel, it's okay. But I was thinking that because you do support through the content management or the content sharing partnership, we could think about this.
Yeah, so I can say a few things about that. So the site that you referenced is actually more of a way to provide addresses in unaddressed areas. So that's what that program is about, and it's been a very successful program for us all over the world, and in places where there are not addresses or where addresses are landmarked based and harder to represent on a map for navigation purposes. Some of what you're talking about is really interesting in terms of that validation. So I can think a few ways that we might be able to explore and address that with you. One of those is you could look into using our addresses API and do some validation that way on the Google Maps platform side of things. You could also share your, if you had a statewide address data set with us, you could share that with us as well. But it's it's an interesting question. I think something we'd be curious to think more about with you.
Yeah, I mean, I can chat with any of you and set up like a separate conversation about this. I look at the link and yeah, I figure, which is an incredible work too. I really like that. And we don't have that kind of problem here. We just need to know, I mean, I wouldn't say that overall, but we have more problems making sure that the addresses are assigned correctly. Or more to what people think they are. Yeah.
All right, we've got a few more minutes here, and it looks like a few more questions. We're catching up well in the chat, and I've been seeing some things get answered. And looks like Dan's asking about synchronization of edits between Waze and Google Maps. Submitted a requested edit to both. Waze accepted it, made the change within 24 hours. But the same edit that was submitted to Google Maps, again, not as a formal content provider, was rejected a number of times. So I guess the question is curious about synchronization of edits between Waze and Google Maps.
Yeah, it is something that that we have made a lot of progress on in the last year. You should definitely have a better experience through the Google Maps content partner side, but those submissions that are made through Waze, we are doing some internal checks comparing the Waze map and the Google map and trying to arbitrate those differences and make improvements. So hopefully eventually it would end up there. But again, it's a great example of hopefully pushing you to Google Maps content partners. But yeah, right now they're different maps. So some of those base map issues have to be addressed separately. And sorry you had that. Sorry that you had that experience.
Yeah, thank you for that. I've asked for a little bit of clarification, but Pete asked if there's a hierarchy for which edits are accepted and gives an example there. About
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
I think Sid can probably address that.
Yeah, I can take that. So for a lot of data types, we do try to, our processing standard is about 30 days. Sometimes it may take longer depending on the quality of the data and depending on the type of data. So on our content requirements page, we do list out some of the processing expectations that you can expect to have.
But specifically also to answer that question about the hierarchy piece, we'll probably be comparing it to different authoritative data sources. So like we'll bring us back to the Arizona map, College University map, right? If there's a conflict between the two in terms of what something is named, we'll probably wind up going back to the partner to ask for some further clarification.
All right. I think we've pretty much caught up with the chat. Oh, one more real quick. John asks if there's a Google Maps content partner from Washington, D.C., or does Google simply connect to Open Data DC? If you know.
So we do have, let me check myself there for a second. So I don't think I'm externally allowed to give out the names of all of our authorities, but I can assure you there probably is someone from Washington that we do work with.
All right. Well, cool. Just I know a couple people trickled in late, and this has been kind of a common question in the chat. But yes, the recording will be sent out to registrants as well as posted in the NISTJIC knowledge base. And Sid, I'll probably connect with you later offline about slides, just in case those are allowed to be shared. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for attending today. Lots of excellent, excellent questions. Anything from Google before we go?
No, I'll just give one final pitch here, building off of John's question actually around Google Maps content partner. So open data is amazing and is wonderful to access. As you saw on the Waze for Cities side, there are a number of benefits already from sharing data through Waze for Cities that is already open data, getting feedback on the quality of the data, how it's being processed, and what kind of impact it's having. And it's something that we're thinking about bringing to more of these data contribution experiences. It's something that also happens on the transit side. So open data is great. Sharing your data through these platforms is even better.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Google, for presenting, and thank you, everyone, for attending. And we
Thanks,
will
everyone.
see you at the next one.
Thank you.